Hello, good afternoon. Once again, welcome to PCA Live. We're at the 3 at 3 coming again. Today, I'm really excited that I was actually decided to come into the office today. I am the only one in the office, so we are definitely very much cognizant and aware of the social distancing here at PCA. But it's great for me to be in the office and in our conference room. That way I can enjoy a good cigar, free from the worries of potentially somebody opening up the front door, which I think some of you have seen in previous podcasts from me sitting on my front porch doing these. So anyway, today we're really excited for a great show. We've got Michael Herklots from Nat Sherman, who's going to be joining us, and Erin Holland, who is the head of our marketing and communication here, will be joining us. And today we got some exciting topics to talk about. I don't know how many have heard or not about this retailer relief package that Nat Sherman has implemented. So we're excited to get Michael's insights on that and what that entails, as well as some things like the TAA 2020 release that Nat Sherman has, and some other things that Michael's been doing during this lockdown, and kind of giving a little bit of perspective on what Nat Sherman sees through 2020 as well as heading into 2021. So on that note, I'm going to bring Michael and Erin into the broadcast. Michael, good afternoon and welcome. How are you?
Thank you.
And Erin, good afternoon and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
How's everyone doing?
Great.
Yeah. Still
socially distancing as good as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to point out we generally do like to enjoy the cigars of our guests. So this was something that you shared with me at TAA last year, which I thought was fantastic. And you were kind enough to offer this. This is this Timeless Sterling, which I think is a really great cigar. So anyway, so I'll be enjoying that here at the PCA headquarters as we have the conversation today. So first, I think most people are pretty aware of you within the industry. But if you could just give a pretty brief overview for anybody who might not be familiar with Michael Herklots and Nat Sherman, and sort of your background and your position at Nat Sherman.
Sure. My name is Michael Herklots. I'm the vice president of Nat Sherman International, which is the premium cigar business and our retail townhouse. I joined Nat Sherman in 2011. Prior to that, I was with Davidoff, running their retail, the second half of my Davidoff career, first 4 or 5 years as a retail sales associate for Davidoff. So that is 18 years in New York, working for Davidoff and Nat Sherman. And then prior to that, the 3 or 4 years prior in Boston doing retail. So it's just over 20 years now and going. So that's my story in a nutshell. Nat Sherman is, one of these classic brand stories of not just our industry, but certainly of American industry. Nat was, of course, a person first, who in 1930 opened up a store called Nat Sherman. Pretty important moment because it's the moment when Nat Sherman became a brand, became an experience more than just a person. And then later into the 1930s, Nat sort of evolved from selling just the leading brands of the day in his store to selling cigars with the Nat Sherman name on them. And so as we fast forward through the last now 90 years, Nat Sherman has also been a cigarette. It has been in 4 locations as a retail business, currently in our 4th, which we moved to in 2007. And we have a portfolio of premium cigars, cigarillos, pipe tobacco. I'm very proud of the portfolio we offer. I think when we talk about what the Nat Sherman experience really is, we often say it's white collar, blue collar, or no collar, which is very typical of New York, of course. It's very typical of the folks who come into our store, and our portfolio really supports that same thing, from our Metropolitan line at $5, $6 per cigar, moving up into things like Timeless Sterling and some of our limited editions up in the $20 range. I think when you look at our portfolio, particularly a company as old as us, one might be surprised to see just how lean our portfolio is. But hopefully what that does is reiterate that we bring products to market because there's a need for that product to be in the market. When we walk into our humidor, there's no big empty section that says coming soon. Our humidor is full. Every humidor is full. and it typically stays that way. So it's important when we bring something to market that we make sure that there's a space for it, and we're not just copying something someone else does. And then once we do that, it's also our obligation to maintain it and to preserve it and keep it consistent year after year after year. So I'm really proud of the portfolio of products we have, because Metropolitan's been around since the 90s. But our TAA Limited last year, this year. So we're innovating, we are creating new products, but most importantly, we're really maintaining our products year after year after year, so customers can rely on them and our retail partners can rely on them.
Great. Talk a little bit about your relationship with Quesada, and how that kind of influences you, and then also even Nat Sherman.
They are just the worst people.
Yeah, that was the impression I got when I first met him a couple of years ago. Yeah,
rude. Terrible.
How dare you smile and hug me and welcome me? Yeah.
They, I mean, they are just the most incredible people. I've known them since I started working for Davidoff, and we developed a very close relationship over those years. That relationship has only gotten stronger and more meaningful. Interestingly, the Shermans had a relationship with Quesada as well that dates back to the 90s. So when I joined Nat Sherman and we looked to expand, revamp, redevelop the premium cigar business, the fact that the Shermans had a pre-existing relationship and I had a pre-existing relationship with the Quesada family really allowed for a pretty unique working relationship. You hear the family stories all the time, and I think you also hear that when maybe it's not blood family, there is this familial sense to our industry. I can say that the familial sense between the Quesadas and I are about as close to real family as you could possibly be at this point. They're just tremendous. So to work with them as closely as I have, certainly since 2011 with Nat Sherman and even prior, has just been extraordinary. From Manolo, and then obviously the young generation that supports him and helps lead the business. They're all just great people. They make great products, and I'm fortunate.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it was. I still remember meeting down there at the Dominican Republic, just out in the foyer there, Casa de Campo. First time I got to meet him and talk with him, meet his family and everything. And just telling a quick story about one of the first go-to cigars that I would put in my rotation when I first became a cigar smoker was the Fonseca 550, and it used to be the cigar that I used to light up and walk the dog and everything. And so it's kind of a part of my cigar history personally, and so it was so great to meet him, and he could not have been nicer. Like, it was just such a great sort of embrace into the cigar family, as you were talking about. Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, you could ask that question to 1,000 people, and they will say exactly the same thing. Manolo has a way of ingratiating himself and just becoming so endearing. I've never met anyone who talks about meeting Manolo without not just affection, but this sense that there is a relationship that's been established. And that's, obviously a credit to Manolo and the kind of guy he is. He's a really special guy. His whole family is.
Yeah. Thanks. So talk a little bit about, you have a unique position as you have the townhouse that's there. It's always funny when I talking with you, I've got to distinguish, because we call our townhouse here the townhouse, and so we always got to make sure we distinguish between the two. But you got this beautiful shop that's up there in New York with Nat Sherman, and so you've got the retail perspective. But then on the other side of it, right, you're a manufacturer. You're selling the different the cigars that you were mentioning a little bit earlier. Just want to talk a little bit about the perspective as we're looking at what's happening right now within the industry, both retail wise and manufacturing wise. Just sort of a little bit of perspective in terms of kind of how Nat Sherman is doing right now, some of the steps that you're kind of looking at taking, and then let's get into a little bit about this retailer relief package.
Sure. So we closed the townhouse immediately following Governor Cuomo's request that non-essential businesses consider closing. So it was about a week prior to the mandate, as I recall. But
can I ask you a quick question?
Of course.
Just be curious into sort of the anatomy of that decision before kind of that call, because I mean there were, there's been a lot of I've talked to a lot of retailers and a lot of decisions on all kinds of different sides about when and how they pulled the trigger. I don't know if you would mind maybe going into a little bit about that anatomy of what that looked like, because again, you're kind of at the epicenter of the worst of it in the United States for the most part. There in New York City. So I was just kind of wondering maybe what the anatomy of that decision was and how you approached that.
I mean, it certainly was not a decision made lightly, nor was it made on an individual level. It was made with a lot of feedback and support from our parent company. I think the prevailing wisdom was, we've been around 90 years. We intend to be around another 90. And the only way to do that is to make sure that our priorities are aligned with the people who are going to make sure that we can withstand another 90 years. And that requires healthy consumers, that requires healthy employees, and looking at the momentum and speed that the virus was developing, particularly in New York, and the early warnings and requests, it was difficult to make an argument, assuming that it was probably going to go down the road of being required anyway. How can you put the short-term reward against the long-term risk? That wasn't a bet that we were willing to make. So it was certainly an uncomfortable decision. It was a quick one, so we tried to in the very early days of that week reach out to some of our customers who maybe had products stored with us, and worked out ways to be able to safely exchange those goods over to them, so they had products to enjoy while they were home, if they had them in their locker or something like that. But we took it very seriously, very quickly. And I have to say, I don't doubt that had we remained open, that people would have gone out of their way to make it, because that's the spirit of New Yorkers, whether it's our employees or whether it's our customers. You want to support people who are supporting you. So you have employees who would go out of their way, I'm sure, to come to work. We have consumers who I'm sure would say, hey, they're open, let's go and support them. And I could only assume that probably would have put us at greater risk for a worst case scenario. So I would like to think that in a very small way, we helped reduce population density in the city. We took a few extra bodies off the train, and looking at where things grew in a relatively short amount of time, I'm pretty confident we made the right call.
Yeah, I think stories are starting to roll in all across the country. I think that spirit of New York is alive and well across the country. I hear retailers talking about customers coming in and ordering boxes, instead of one or two cigars at a time, because they want to support, making sure that they're finding them for curbside and even seeking them out if they're doing online sales and that kind of stuff too. So I've been really pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised, but it's been one of those things to where when you in a time like this, being able to hear good stories that promote optimism and hope, those are the kind of stories coming in from our retailers for very same thing, people being very supportive in that regard. And so that's good to hear. And thank you for kind of going into that, because I know that every business is different, and the decision for all of this is never easy. So I appreciate your perspective on that, because
Sure.
You're right there downtown New York, and so it's a really difficult situation to be in there.
Yeah.
Erin, I'll throw it over to you for sort of the next round of questions that we have, and kind of going into some of the other things we have, like the retailer relief package.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I remember seeing an article about that a few weeks ago, and that's part of what spurred on wanting to have this conversation. So yeah, what can you tell us about the retailer support kits?
We have pretty regular check-ins with the team, but that first week we basically created buckets of how we were going to manage our conversations moving forward. One is, what can we do immediately today? The second is, what can we do today to affect a healthy future? And then in the middle are, what are the things that we can start to prepare for a healthy return to business? And the things that we could do today in the moment 6 weeks ago were really limited because, you know, it's no secret. Obviously, our industry is so profoundly intimate. Whether we are fierce competitors or neighbors or vendors to manufacturers to consumer, whatever the relationship is, deep down, regardless, we are all very, very close. And so, you know, the last thing we wanted anyone to feel is that somehow we were putting pressure on them by calling them. But we really encouraged our team to reach out to their retailers just to see how they're doing, you know, not to try and get an order, but just to reach out, you know, in any time of crisis. You want to check in and see how people are doing that you care about. So then we started thinking about, we were having this discussion just about, you know, can you believe there's no toilet paper? Can you believe there's no eggs? Can you, you know, and then what are the things, what is our version of that as retailers? What are the things that all of a sudden we're running out of that we didn't imagine we would? And so what came to mind immediately was, what has shifted was this grab and go, curbside, a dramatic increase in that type of behavior, which generally, if a customer is typically walking in and buying a cigar to enjoy there, buying a cigar and maybe taking one with them, you know, they carry it in their hand, they put it in their pocket, they grab a match, they put it in their pocket, they have a lighter with them. But the consumer behavior is changing as a result of retailers modifying their business. And it occurred to us that the first things we would be looking for is more bags, more zipper bags, more matches, in order to affect those types of transactions. We had just received our shipment of new shopping bags and zipper bags and all that. So we're fortunate that even though our sales team is all safely in their homes working remotely, obviously our store is closed and our folks are home, we do have a very small crew, very committed, who are going to our warehouse twice a week and picking, packing, and shipping. So we worked with them pretty quickly to design a retailer curbside support kit, basically. And I think it's like 25 shopping bags, 50 zipper bags, 50 of the little cardboard pillows, matches, cutters. And so we have, I think we've allotted 2 per retailer who needs it. So obviously, you know, for those people who are closed, it's inconvenient if a package is inbound. So we were able to reach out to most of our retail partners directly and just say, if this is helpful for you, let us know and we'll ship it to you. No charge, no anything. We'll get it out the door. And as long as we were shipping, some people added on some products that they needed to. Of course, we shipped that for free with the other goods. But we were really just trying to find a way, you know, we can't make hand sanitizer, we can't make face masks, but we can at least provide some support materials for our partners to affect these new types of transactions. So we included ashtrays and other things to run promotions, anything we could do to try and keep their businesses propped up while ours is sort of stalled.
Yeah. Maybe if you decide to make a face mask with the little Nat Sherman logo that opens up to stick a cigar in, and then you can button it back up when you're done. Maybe that's a new one for you.
Not only is that a horrible idea, I can assure you that would never happen.
Yeah. So go ahead, Erin.
No, I mean, I think it's really great. I think it's good because it's so great just for the world and for people and to show that, you know, no one's alone in this, but also for our industry, because like, you know, like you've said, we're so close, we're so tight knit. At the end of the day, it's really nice to see all these examples of all of us coming together and working together. So,
and the feedback and gratitude have been unbelievable. So it's, you know, we want to do what our people need. We don't want to do just what we want. There's lots of things that I want to do. but it's not what our partners need us to do. And if we want long-term relationships to continue, we have to think about the needs of our partners, not the needs of our business today. And so that is really what is kind of informing all of our decisions. Interestingly, this also aligned with our TAA release, which I think we're going to talk about in a bit. And of course, we're creating a product to be released to market at a time when these stores are closed. Right. So, we didn't want anyone to feel pressure that they had to take it. Well, if they want to allocate some and they've asked that we hold it, of course, we're going to do that, whatever we can do, because we have to do what they need today, what they need next week, and what they need next year. That's what real partnership is. And we've done that for 90 years. We've certainly done that as a renewed commitment for the last 9 years. And I would dare say that we intend to do it for the next 90.
And one of the things that I really like about this is kind of putting a stamp on that aspect of partnership, because especially at a time like this, what you're really looking at is making sure that people have what they need right now, so that the partnership is still there next year, in 5 years, right? Right. Especially with a lot of folks, to where people are pointing out where so Michael right here on one of the comments talking about, tax increase next year. Now, some things are going to get a little bit more difficult in some of these other areas where some of this might continue to move forward. And we're going to continue to try to fight that, Michael, as best we can. And we'll continue to try to do things with that. But that environment still exists. And unfortunately, none of that has a pause button. And so that term partnership, I think, takes on a whole new meaning in times like this, when, just as you said, you're looking at what they need right now in order to make sure that there is a next year.
Yeah, that's right. And I believe in the future of our industry, and I believe in,
I do too,
in the natural good of people. I think all of us do. So, even chatting with our CFO and other folks, if you just look at this financially, it is nothing but spend. But it's investment. This is investment. And if we don't have healthy retailers when we come out of this, that will affect our industry in its entirety. And, when I wear the hats, I've got the manufacturing hat and I've got the retailer hat. When I put the retailer hat on for a minute, our job is not as Nat Sherman, the townhouse, Nat Sherman, since 1930, we have a responsibility to do whatever we can to make sure that the industry is healthy, that our competitors remain our competitors in good standing for a long time, because that's what keeps the industry healthy, which will only grow our business too. And so, as we talked about what we could do, whether it's running extra deals, adding extra ashtrays, anything we can do that is sort of customized at a moment's notice, to be able to help our partners in need. If we were open right now for business in New York, we would probably need different things, and we would be relying on our manufacturing partners and our suppliers to be there for us. In fact, we ran out of cutters, and we called Quality Importers and said, we need something. And they were gracious enough. They're sending us 1,000 cutters for free just to help support these packages. So, it takes a village. And our industry, when you look at the scale of our industry relative to the industry we're often lumped in with, we really are a village. And so, this is the time when we all need to be together, working together, so that we all end up healthy on the other side, and we can go back to kicking each other's asses afterwards.
Yeah. It's a really interesting. I love that aspect of ensuring that the industry as a whole, if you look at it as a body, right, the body's got to remain healthy. And it's almost like saying, well, I'm going to cut off the left hand because I want to be the right hand and the only hand. But the entirety of the body is healthy when all components are working together. And you need, just as you were saying, competition pushes things forward. It ensures that the industry continues to move forward. And it really is. I hate it when you start relying on cliches to do this, but I mean, a rising tide, right? It does affect all the boats that are in there. And that's essentially what we're trying to accomplish, right? And it's in times like this to where that really is manifest within this industry. And I think that that's one of the key aspects. I mean, the restaurant is another industry that's a larger village, but they're facing somewhat of the same types of things that are going on right now. You mentioned the TA. I did want to get to that. Talk a little bit about that cigar, the special release for 2020. What's the blend and all the kind of important points that you want to hit the retailers you need to understand about that, and then also to your point, the finer points of shipping and if you're not open and some of those details that retailers can learn about. So in case they have ordered it or are going to get it, that kind of thing.
So it was, we did a lot of work in advance to make sure that we were prepared and ready for the TAA meeting. So as soon as the product was made available in that meeting, our inventory was well positioned to be able to fulfill orders immediately. Speaking of hard decisions, the TAA had to make a very hard decision, a long-term decision that was, we have to postpone. That's just, there was no question about it. Obviously that was also, I think, forced as things moved forward. It became unavoidable. But certainly they were working that process early on and trying to weigh the options, and it was leaning that way anyway. But you make do. And so, there was a perfectly fine, less than ideal virtual convention that was a great opportunity to still see the people we love that we would have seen in Mexico and talk about our products and do business. So we brought a limited edition, very, very small production this year, only 650 mazos of 10, so 6,500 cigars, manufactured in Nicaragua, 100% Nicaraguan. But it's a pretty unique blend. When we talk about our products sort of holistically in our cigar portfolio, we don't make ass kickers, for lack of a better word. We all of our cigars, even as they push the levels of richness and full-bodiedness, all of our cigars also maintain a certain level of elegance and finesse. And so that was certainly part of the guiding philosophy for this blend. It was also one of the more challenging aspects of the blend, which took a lot of iterations and tweaking in order to achieve it. But uniquely, it uses predominantly filler tobaccos from Jalapa, which is a region most notorious for wrapper and its finesse and elegance and grace. But we used higher primings of Jalapa, so primings that would typically not be favorable for wrapper because of its lower combustion, but it has great richness with this really beautiful elegance that is Jalapa. And we finished it with a wrapper from Esteli, which Esteli is really not known for wrapper. Esteli is known for fortitude and richness, not beautiful, perfect leaves. But we were able to find lower priming, beautiful leaves in order to finish these cigars. So we kind of flip-flopped, not intentionally. It wasn't, that was not the wisdom going in, but through tweaks, we found ourselves in this position. And it's interesting looking at it, how these two tobaccos are playing different roles, which, talking through it right now with you, is kind of what we're all doing in the industry right now. We have a lot of people playing roles that they don't typically play, transacting business in ways they don't typically do it. And very much the same way this blend has tobaccos playing roles that they typically don't play, but doing so in a very graceful and very successful way. So we have the product. We've been shipping it out regularly. Our team is there Mondays and Wednesdays, shipping 2 days a week, which we're certainly grateful for. And so I'd say those TAA retailers who are open have received their products. Other TAA stores who are not operating have certainly reached out and asked for an allocation. which we of course have put aside and will put aside for when they are ready to receive the goods. And so, they will certainly sell out quickly, and they already are starting to move, which we're certainly grateful for retailer support. And for consumers watching, it's an unbelievable cigar. So I would go to the TAA site, find a TAA retailer, pick up the phone and call them if there's not one near you, and ask them to ship them to you.
I love it. I can't wait to do that, actually. Now, for the non-TAA retailers, what are some of the more exciting cigars that are out there that you think for certain the non? Because this is very exclusive. This is a very limited release. So are there any particular cigars that you're excited about, whether it's this year or moving maybe into production for next year, that'll be coming to more retailers kind of en masse?
So let me look back first.
Sure.
We're 90 years old with a very polished portfolio. Our portfolio is developed in a way that is meant to be broad. It's meant to be accommodating for the white collar, blue collar, no collar approach. But more than that, I'm just so proud of the fact that we've been able to maintain and preserve those experiences for decades in some cases. Our Metropolitan, which is really our core brand, the Metropolitan Connecticut, Maduro, and Host, they've been consistently manufactured since 1994, 1995. And I think while there are certainly lots of blends and products available on the market from that era, I think you would be hard pressed to find expressions that are as consistent and spot on today as they were then. And the experience being almost nostalgic when you light them up, that it has the flavor of that era. That's something that we've spent a lot of time on. And I was on actually with a retail partner last week, and a guy had commented, I've never smoked a Nat Sherman cigar. Where should I start? Besides going through the criteria of how to make that choice based on flavor, what I did say is I think it's important for people to, if they haven't, to try Metropolitan, because it really is a snapshot of a moment in time. And it's also a huge tribute to our manufacturing partners who are so committed to maintaining that experience year after year, despite the fact that the crops are changing every year. So the cigars I'm most excited about are the cigars that are available 24/7, 365, year after year after year after year, so that when this TAA runs out, they can still turn around and pick up a Timeless Prestige, Panamericana, Sterling, Metropolitan, Epoca, because we are committed to those experiences and making sure that they're consistent every year. I mean, if we go back to what do our retailers need? Our retailers don't need brand new products with brand new stories, with things that they have to relearn and then explain that to a customer. Our retail partners need the same thing that our consumers need, which is consistency, reliability, and that's what we provide. So I'm most excited about our portfolio in its entirety. I'm obviously very excited about this TAA Limited. I can say that we've been working on all kinds of products with the intention of eventually commercializing them. But I think we have to ask ourselves today, is it what our partners need?
Yeah.
And I don't know if the answer to that today is the same as the answer I assumed it would have been today if you asked me 6 weeks ago. So
makes sense.
We're working closely with our manufacturing partners still. We're continuing to perfect products for the eventual commercialization of those items. But before I ever commit to the idea that there is something else coming, I have to make sure that our industry and our retail partners and consumers are in a place where that is what they need. And I'm not convinced that that's the case right now. What I am convinced of is we have this great TAA release that I think is what our TAA retailers will need as they reopen. and we have a portfolio of product that is in stock, in inventory, at the same price as it was, in the same expressions as they were. I can't think of anything more valuable to the entire premium cigar community than having a portfolio like that.
You know, one of the really interesting things that you noted there, and I was kind of thinking about this anyway, because it was going to be a follow-up question I had about the TAA. But anybody who knows you, even a little bit, knows that you're a wine guy. And, you can go year to year, same vineyard, and it's going to present a little bit differently each time you drink it each of those years because of how, same thing with tobacco, right? It's your point about that portfolio, and Kylie, yes, the Sterling is really good, actually. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's part of my regular rotation. But that Sterling, each year, depending upon what that crop and how everything goes, it's going to have some nuance to it.
Sure.
And that's one of the really interesting things I think about for cigar smokers is that it runs the gamut. Obviously, I've got some really good friends of mine that are extremely brand loyal. They smoke 2 or 3 cigars and that's it. Then there are others that love to experiment, etc. But those that do kind of have those go-tos, I think that they are more adept at kind of understanding the nuance that exists amongst their favorite cigars between productions. And that's one of the more interesting components of it, in my opinion, just as a sort of a lay cigar person. I'm not that, as knowledgeable as you guys are. But that's what makes it really interesting for me is that a lot of my favorite cigars, they do have that complexity change and that nuance change from, different years.
The mastery of the craft is to make a change indistinguishable.
Sure.
It's the opposite of wine. The crops, of course, change year to year, but in wine, the expectation is then the flavor will change. That a 2017 cab is going to drink differently than the 16 you had the year before, probably. If the growing conditions happen to be the same, if the weather was largely the same during the growing season, then it's much closer to what a previous crop might have been or previous vintage might have been. The same principle holds true with our products, but a particular production is generally not a particular vintage. Particular production is multiple vintages, multiple farms, multiple seeds, multiple leaf positions. So the analogy I use all the time is Broadway. A premium cigar is like a Broadway show. So if we think of Phantom of the Opera for a second, chances are not everyone saw Phantom of the Opera on opening day in 1980, whatever, in New York City. But millions of people have seen Phantom of the Opera in multiple theaters with different casts in different countries. And the show is the same because they've found suitable replacements to play the role. So the story doesn't change, the music doesn't change. It's just the people playing the roles change, the people playing the instruments change, but everything else is the same. That is what we have to do in the premium cigar world, is we recast different tobaccos every year to play the same role so that Metropolitan Connecticut today is the same as it was 10 years ago and the same as it was in 1995, despite the fact that the tobaccos are different. And so even if somehow, let's say we made the most limited cigar, we made 1 cigar a year, the most limited edition, and we had 3 bales of tobacco, and those were the tobaccos that we used. And we made 1 every year, so we knew we were using the exact same proportions of the exact same tobaccos to make sure that that cigar is 100% consistent. In 10 years, the product would be different because the ingredients themselves are changing through the aging process.
Right.
So no different than if they never changed the cast from the first cast of Phantom, the show would be significantly different today because it would be a geriatric cast trying to carry on the same show, right? It can't be done. The premium cigar industry is exactly the same.
Yeah. So I've never heard that analogy before. I like that a lot. And the more, my wife loves Phantom. And so the more I listened to it more than I probably would have ever listened to it, based upon the fact that, she's watching and introduce our kids to it. But the more you listen to a song, the more you know the nuances of it, even
Yes.
Same thing with the cigar, right? And that's one of the things is that I love being able to be surprised continuously, even on cigars that I've smoked for over a decade, based upon that. And that's for me, that's the beauty in the artistry that you just pointed out. And that's one of the things I truly appreciate so much about it is even in the same box, you can still get those nuances. And that for me right there is, I think, underscores the beauty in the artistry of this craft. That's why I like it so much. Now going back to the wine aspect of it, what wine does Michael Herklots drink with a TAA 2020 limited edition?
Whatever's open. No,
that's not true.
I would say so. There is a really interesting earthiness to this TAA limited. It's the spiciness and earthiness, but still with that particular finesse. So for me, there's two approaches to pairing. One is that you find like flavors in the two things, put them together, and they're seamless. So I've been drinking a lot of wines from the Rhone region, but old world style wines in general tend to be a little lower alcohol, tend to be fruit forward, but really with earthy kind of undertones. So I have enjoyed the TAA with wines like that, which is it's a no-brainer, no effort pairing. However, if the other way to pair is to fill in the blanks. So you identify what the cigar is lacking if you were painting a more complete picture, and then you try and fill in those blanks. And so what I would say, if the cigar is lacking something, it is not particularly woody, herbaceous, nutty. It doesn't have what I consider to be the whiter flavors: wood, nut, bread, those types of flavors. So you could also pair this with a bolder white, whether a Riesling, not a sweet Riesling, but like an Alsatian Riesling that's typically got body, or a Chardonnay grape-based white, because the body will stand up to the body of the cigar, but it would allow for the wine to add brighter, rounder flavors that would fill in the blanks for the cigar. And then you would constantly have this dialogue back and forth, sort of layering flavors on top of one another, rebalancing the palate with each puff and sip and puff and sip.
I so wish that I had said it, because when you started talking about what is it lacking, and you're talking about the earthiness of the cigar, Riesling popped in my head, and I was going to say something, and I just wish that I would have said it, because then I would have had video evidence that I actually had done it, and it was on par with an expert sommelier offering recommendation on a wine. And I wish I would have done that. And now no one's going to believe me because it came after the fact. But
I believe you.
You do, yeah.
Yes, like
get out of here.
Always pouring it with like a whiskey. What would you do then?
So I always change the verb when we're talking about whiskey or high alcohol spirits, because pairing for me really relies on a balance after a puff and a sip are complete. What I find with high alcohol spirits is that the high alcohol becomes astringent. So if you were to take a puff of that cigar, as bold as it is, and follow it with a bourbon, you would be left with an overwhelming flavor of the bourbon, but you would be left with very little of the cigar's more elegant, subtle finish, because it simply can't stand up to the ferocity of the alcohol, particularly if you're drinking it neat. So what I would typically, instead of saying pairing, just how would I enjoy them together? And I would go bourbon for the sweetness or rum for the sweetness, which this cigar does not have really much sweetness. I would avoid peaty, smoky scotches, for example, because I think it would be too much like what you're smoking and it could be overwhelming. But then I would also recommend that you drink first and then puff, and you layer the cigar's smoke above the spirit, which allows those flavors to interact and marry better than if you put the spirit after the cigar.
Very nice. It's a good tip.
Yeah. All right. Before we go into some of the more lighthearted questions, Erin, did you have any follow-ups on anything that we've discussed up till now?
I think the only other thing that I am a little curious about is if you do have any particular advice or tips or words of wisdom to share with any retailers or any of our PCA retailers to help out during this time, or advice for now, for after, for anything at all.
I think we are strong together. And when things like this happen, it is very easy to look at our own situations and become very overwhelmed by the magnitude of the impact that this is having. And we see it certainly when crises are regional, hurricanes, floods. It's easy to feel supported because you genuinely have a population of healthy businesses reaching out to help the smaller population that's in need. There are very few moments when everyone is affected at the same time. And this is one of those moments. And so my gut says that there may be less of the communal outreach, because everyone is looking, rightfully so, at their own business, at their own situation, and figuring out how to get out of it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I think we have to do that for our individual businesses. But I would also encourage everyone to ask for help when they need it, because everyone has been impacted differently. We've not all been impacted the same. And so I think that means that we will be able to support one another in a very meaningful community way. Everything from, I think about inventory. We've never had a complete pipeline disruption to the industry the way we have it right now. Right. Inventories are going to be limited, but there's no shortage of product nationally. These are those moments when you call a vendor and you ask for an order and a vendor says, "I'm sorry, I'm out of stock." How can we say, let me ask around. Let's see if we can find it in a different store, in a different community, in a different place, and work out a way to get that product to you from somewhere else. And maybe, as the vendors are working to work on their own pipelines, there are these great retailer consortiums. We see it at the state level already, working towards affecting change at regulatory levels and working with their own state and local governments, where states are organized. I think it's a great way for these states to get together as a community. You're already in a state, the taxes are already paid. How can the individual retailers help each other to stay sound and get back on their feet? I think there's a really great opportunity, but my gut says that it's not going to be an overwhelming outreach to offer support, because I think everyone is going to be overwhelmed with triaging their own business. But I think that if someone is asked for help, there would be a resounding call to action to help wherever possible. And I think the more we can be transparent about the things we're struggling with, and the more we can be open and honest about where we're good and where we're weak, and we can be sounding boards for ideas, I really believe that as an industry, we will be able to build up our strength again and get back to business.
Yeah, absolutely. wanted just to ask the last few minutes here. First and foremost, I do love Polar Seltzer water. Is that by chance the vanilla orange? I say the orange on there.
Mandarin.
Mandarin. Okay, yeah, it's another good one. Yeah, I love those things. I drink a lot of the different flavors. I love them. Anyway, just a couple quick questions, for the harder ones. I know you got an adorable family there of little girls. What are some of the fun activities that you've been able to do down with the quarantine, everything else, in terms of games or activities or anything like? Have you gotten some fun makeover parties? What's going on? My daughter loves to give me makeovers all the time. So
I got a little nail polish once, but that hasn't been a big one. I was at the grocery store early on, and I found I don't know how it is where you are, but in our grocery stores, like where the cards and the stationery and stuff is, like all along the top are all just like garbage games. Everything from like slime to
yeah.
Transformers. Like the nightmare when you're actually shopping with your kids and they're like, oh, can I have that? Can I have that?
Yeah.
But I saw they had 6 card games as a package: Old Maid, Go Fish, Crazy Eights.
Oh, nice.
Slapjack, something. So we Go Fish. So we've been having a blast doing those as a family. That's been awesome. We've been watching some movies. We've been cooking a lot, doing lots of bike rides and stuff. I feel very fortunate. I lived in the city for 16 years. We moved to Jersey 2.5 years ago now. So fortunately, we have a backyard and we have space where we can get out and move around safely and get a little exercise and move and play. So that's been a lot of fun, just to go on walks and ride bikes and do all that. I mean, I've been home on the ground. This is my 6th week. I haven't been in one place for 6 weeks in probably 12 years.
Yeah.
At least 10 years, but probably 12 years. Even my last years in Davidoff, I was traveling at least once a month, if not twice. So this is a completely different world to be home this long. I said on a show recently, a couple of weeks ago, I put my suitcase away. I haven't put my suitcase away in years. But we
How many times did it take your wife asking you to put it away before you finally put it away?
No. It just I had to put it away. Hold on one sec. Oh no, it's gone. Thanks.
So what are you looking forward to? Yeah, well, there you go. What do you look for? I'm glad it was your door this time and not mine. I mean, I've had too many. You keep, my daughter at one point, I was on with Cigar Coop and it woke her up. It was like 12:30 at night. And she was wandering down, right? And she was just in a t-shirt and her underwear. And I was like, hey, you realize everybody saw you. And so she, and then she walks out on the door and everybody can see her in her princess dress. So I'm glad it was you this time and not my.
You know what? I am a total fan of the interruption. Like, to me, that is part of the fun of working from home.
Sure.
I think it's totally unfair. I mean, it depends what the environment is. But again, this is one of those scenarios where this is not a special accommodation for me. And so, I need to be as close to business as usual as possible. Everybody is dealing with the same challenges. So, on all my conference calls, if my kids show up, it's like, pop your head in, wave,
right.
Say hello. Why not? I think it's great.
Right. Yeah, no, funnily enough, I think I kind of got away because, they've got online classes and stuff now. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to get away, and that way they can worry and have the internet and the Wi-Fi all to themselves right now. I do have a very good question from the audience here. Kevin wants to know, who's doing your hair these days?
Bro, these are dire days, man. Now, it's funny. Everyone, I feel like, is taking the risks they've never taken because they never had the time to see what would happen. So I've seen more people with beards who have never had beards because what do they have to lose? I mean, there's nothing they can do anyway. Roots are growing out for people. I mean, hair colors are changing. Everything is different. So, I mean, I am doing my hair. Thank you, Kevin Page. But I have not put a product in my hair in, I think, 5 weeks, just to see what I've had product in my hair for, 20 years. So there's absolutely nothing in my hair, and it's like it's changing and doing things it didn't do before, and and there's not much for it to do at this point.
That reminds me of Coming to America when he's like, "What do you put in your hair?" He's like, "Nothing, just juices and berries." You're at that point now. You're where Prince Hakeem was. You just got juice and berry in your hair.
That's it. I got hand grease in my hair right now.
I just want to point out we've got some international audience members here. Valerie Bradshaw from Regina, Saskatchewan joined us today, and we just got a hello from India. So that's good. So yeah, enjoying all the international folks that are watching too. The last question, really, ultimately, what are you looking forward to doing most once this is kind of all over? I mean, aside from maybe some of the obvious about getting back to the townhouse and enjoying some wine and cigars and things like that. No one's wondering who's doing my hair because the same person's doing my hair that's been doing it for the past 10 years.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it, not me. I'm really looking forward to getting back to the DR. This is the longest I've gone without going to the Dominican Republic in 10 years.
Wow.
So just being able to get back there and seeing everyone, sitting down, smoking a cigar with a group, and being social. But honestly, and I don't know how soon after things return to normalcy will we return to all of the norms, but yeah. I'm a hugger. I hug people, I mean, especially in New York, we greet European style. You kiss everyone, you hug everyone. I also feel like in our industry, that's very common. I don't think I realized just how meaningful that human connection is on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And there's only so many ways you can express affection and concern for people. And doing it virtually, we can say it over and over, and we can mean it, and we can do more face calls instead of just phone calls, which I think are really helpful. And I think all of this will certainly change behavior moving forward. I think we'll do a lot more of this as things go on. But I just can't wait to see someone in person and hopefully shake their hand and give them a hug and tell them how happy I am that they're well, and how happy I am that to have them as a partner if they're a retail partner, to have them as a consumer if they're a consumer, and just thank them face to face. It's what our industry is built on. There's very few businesses that I think are as dependent to human touch as our business, and whether that's the human touch of making the product, the human touch of selling the product, and the human touch of enjoying the product. The idea of social distancing is really not in line with how our industry works. I don't think we're going to go back to a full normal. But if there's a place for me to take some risks, as long as the other party is willing, I'm gonna bring back a couple hugs.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll be right there with you as well. I think that I was reading something a little bit. It was talking a lot about the resiliency of New York, right? And it obviously goes back to September 11th. And I think that by and large, in a lot of ways, we did get back to a good norm after September 11th. But there are some residuals that exist, right? The TSA, when we go through at airports, and some of these other things that happen, will kind of have to be the new norm. And I think that some of those residuals will probably end up settling in once we kind of get through this and settle in. But I do believe, like I said, I think that spirit of New York is very much a spirit of kind of a lot of us, particularly with cigar smokers. But I think, but by and large, just the social construct of this country and pretty much most of the world, I do think we're going to get back to a place though, because if you just look at the spike in of these types of things happening, people going on and jumping on, face virtual conversations, et cetera, and how those are going on, we crave and we need the social interaction. We need that connection. I think it's another one of the reasons that underscores, I think, the importance of the premium cigar industry, because it's such a viable bond for that social connection. But I am still very much optimistic and hopeful that as this comes back, that everyone's going to appreciate more that aspect of the society that we take for granted, which is that social interaction, that face-to-face connection with folks. On that note, Paul Groh just asked the last question here I'd like to get to, but Nat Sherman, are you doing virtual events with retailers? And if so, maybe just help kind of provide a little bit of background there. I know Kylie is going to connect with Paul. I believe Kylie is his rep in that area, but if you want to just kind of speak a little bit more broad-based about virtual events from Nat Sherman and what retailers can expect and where to connect with you on that.
I'll go back to where we were earlier, which is we have engaged on every single platform that exists for engagement with retailers and consumers for the last 5 weeks. But we've been very careful to not be pushy. You know, there are businesses that are relying on these types of virtual events, and as we've seen them occur, we'll take that as an invitation to reach out and ask if there's an opportunity. But it goes back to, we are very, very conscious that there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to how to deal with what is going on now. Everyone is being affected differently. And
right.
What we have found in normal conditions is when we put together deals, incentives, promotions, events, cookie cutter never works. We always need to cater it. So, Paul, what I'd say to you or any other retailer is the answer is yes. Whatever platform you're using, whatever ideas you have in place, we will gladly embrace and work with you to make them happen. If you're looking for our guidance, we will absolutely take the lead and do it for you. But if you have a platform that's already working, or you have a system that you've already kind of adopted and evolved that's working for your people, you tell us where to go, how to do it, and we will be there 1,000%.
Or reach out to us. We've got platforms. We've got things to do as well. As you as a PCA member, that's a member benefit. We'll be glad to help you out. We've got platforms too that you can use. So absolutely. This might be a dumb idea, but this is something that just kind of, I don't know why I didn't make the connection. My wife opened up a retail business on March 1st. And so it's been a really interesting challenge for her. She's doing a phenomenal job though, in pivoting and doing some stuff. And so it's a DIY cake, cookie, and cupcake decorating aspect, right? And so the whole experiential aspect of the retail, it can't happen right now. But what she's done is she's gone to shipping. And so there've been a lot of moms that have done virtual birthday parties with their kids. And so they'll send the same decorating kit. This last one they just did was a bunch of llama cakes. And they all sat around on a Zoom and they all decorated the cakes together and did plans. And just kind of thinking about that same thing of buying, Paul's a TA member, getting the TA specials, and maybe his retailers can all get that. You guys get on and you can talk through what that is while all of his customers are there online sharing the experience while you're talking through it and sipping and drinking and talking about it. Might be an interesting idea.
And that's exactly what we've done. So we did a TAA tasting once where a retailer got the product, pitched it out to his consumers, and then we coordinated a time to all get together and kind of smoke it together and talk about it together. We had another retailer who put together 4 packs of our products and had a 4-night back-to-back
that's awesome
with our rep, each one paired in advance with easy to get
really
stuff.
Cool.
And actually it turns out that it was harder to get the booze. And then so we said, well, let's scrap that and just smoke what you have and drink what you have, and we'll just do a Q&A session. But the answer, of course, is whatever you need, we will do. That is our commitment to partners. So if you want to do a virtual tasting, we'll figure out how to do it. You want to do a virtual pairing, we'll figure out how to do it. You want to do a virtual seed to ash seminar, I'll share my PowerPoint and we'll do it. I'm not exactly sure how, but we figure it out. That's the the fun. The good news is the expectations are so low, we couldn't possibly disappoint. We figure it out and we get through it together. And I would love to do it. I mean, Paul and Jen's stores, it's unbelievable. We did an amazing event there in this winter. It was so much fun. We had such a great turnout. And
the new store is beautiful.
It was a model that we tried out for the first time, and it worked tremendously. It was a pairing. The space was great. So obviously, it's going to be very hard to beat the in-person experience at Metro Cigars. But I'm sure we can come close.
Yeah. Just the only thing you're missing are just, the virtual hugs, and then you're good to go.
Exactly.
There you
And
go.
Paul
So
is a hell of a hugger, man.
Sounds good. Erin, any last thoughts or questions? And Kevin, thank you for the opportunity of a shameless plug for the wife's business. That's funny. That was a good one.
No, I mean, I think you've answered everything. I guess I was kind of wondering if there's anything you haven't shared with us. Any kind of new ways that Nat Sherman is working on staying connected with your customers and keeping a strong presence while still maintaining the social distancing? I think you've covered everything, but maybe there's something extra.
We've basically we have guiding rules on how we conduct our business, and so there are lines that we don't cross. But this has been an opportunity to really think differently. And what I've appreciated is that some of the best ideas, we in general are not a top-down organization. We're a very collaborative organization. And that's because we hire really good people who are really smart, and they have great ideas, probably better than mine. And we are stronger together when we pool our ideas and think about things in a very different way. And the ability to try things now is different. I think if we had said, let's do a virtual Zoom event 6 weeks ago, someone would have said, I think I'll wait until you can fly here. Sure. But now we know that's not going to happen. And so our ability to really test and learn right now has been extraordinary. And I've been so impressed watching people, Up Down in Chicago has been doing a lot of really unique engagements. It's been fun to see some of these late night virtual herfs that are happening. I was on one last night with the Erin Loomis and his team, developing palettes. Mm-hmm. There's just so much opportunity to do more. And I had a conversation yesterday with my buddy Pierre that runs Puro Trader, and he said that when he's thinking forward, he hopes that our industry will do a better job of adopting technology. And I said that we've done a hell of a good job as an industry of adopting technology, where technology has allowed us to adopt. We have technology that is going out of their way to restrict us.
Right. Right.
Which, is unbelievable. But I think what this is demonstrating is that when the entire box is not available, all you can do is think outside of it. And when we as business leaders, or maybe Paul as a principal, it's difficult for us to get outside of our box. But our customers and our employees are probably dying to share their out of the box ideas, and probably didn't because they knew that the box was the box. So I've been enjoying the ideas coming from our teams, and so I would encourage other people to look to their employees and see what ideas they have, not just for when business returns, but for what can be done right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, great. Well, Michael, thank you very much for spending some time with us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. Michael came down here a few months ago to do an education series for us here at the townhouse called Style and Cigars that we did for our Capitol Hill folks, and it was very well attended, and people really enjoyed it, and another great insight into the cigar industry. So again, thank you. Kevin Page said this, right here. I want to show this comment because it's indicative of you and Nat Sherman right there about your strong relationships and what it means and coming through. So again, we appreciate it.
Kevin was one of the first 20 accounts to bring in Nat Sherman after I joined the business, and we kind of revamped it. If he wasn't my first, it was one of my first events, 2012. And talk about a guy who was resilient, who thinks outside of the box, who thinks not just about how to preserve the business the way he's done it in the place he's done it, but to look outside of that and think different and take risks and try new things. You know, retailers like Kevin are why our industry's been around as long as it has been. And retailers like Kevin are going to not only survive this, but are going to be better for it on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We got a really large contingency of retailers that are out there that are just doing that, right? And you know, the fight that's inside of our retailers, it's been honed over the past several years, right? Considering the regulatory fights right now, and I think a lot of that is paying some dividends as we're kind of going through some of this right now. So
Listen,
anyway,
as an industry, we are strong, and when we look at the landscape of the community of our industry today, sure, there are things that we disagree about, that we argue about, but at the end of the day, those things are amplified, but they are still the smaller, they are the minority compared to the things that we are actually all aligned on.
yeah.
And while I don't think that we should abandon our convictions for the things that we're fighting for, and I don't think that we always have to agree on every element, that we can fight for, you know, those sort of individual cases and nuances. We will be strongest when we remember to align where we can align. And then we can certainly discuss our differences and lobby accordingly and fight for what we believe is right on those sort of smaller issue by issue examples. But broadly, we are so closely aligned as an industry. And whether it's manufacturer to manufacturer, retailer to retailer, or the way the whole ecosystem works, we have so much more in common than we have differences. This really is, I think, a great moment where we can think about industry first and extend our hand for help, whether we need it or whether we can offer it. I think that in the short term should outweigh some of those smaller differences. And then once we are strong and secure, it'll give us a foundation where we can meaningfully continue to discuss some of those smaller issues where we're not aligned.
Yeah.
But it has to be what's good for our industry, what's good for our retailers, and good for the long-term growth and health of the entire industry. And we are certainly committed to that. Absolutely.
Well said. Well said. Again, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Thank you for everybody for joining us live. And then again, this will be recorded and it's available Facebook and YouTube as well. Michael, all my best to your family, all my best to the Nat Sherman family, and hope to see you very, very soon and to enjoy the warm embrace of Nat Sherman sometime soon in the very near future. So thank you, Erin. Hope you guys are all staying safe and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
I'm looking forward to it.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.